All right, welcome to the Spaces, and I'd like to welcome Ro Khanna and Mike Gallagher. So this is a discussion of AI safety, among other things. Appropriate, I suppose, especially today, having announced X.ai. But I think we're going to touch on a lot of topics here that I think people will find very interesting. So just to welcome Ro Khanna and Mike Gallagher.
Well, thank you, Elon. Thank you for doing this and your conversation with Mike and me a month or so ago. And then we all thought it'd be important to have a thoughtful, engaged conversation in a way that people could participate without the theatrics of congressional hearings where people just are looking to score points. So I'm hopeful that'll happen today, and I know Mike's committed to it. I'll just share a minute of my perspective. I appreciated what you did to seed OpenAI. I think there are a lot of benefits to AI, from personalized medicine to personalized education to looking at supply chains and how to make those more efficient and increase in productivity in our country, and just making products cheaper and more abundant. There are numerous concerns. One of my biggest concerns is the data you put into AI. If you put junk data, you're going to get junk outcomes. And right now, there is not much regulation or thought about what is the actual data set that we're putting in AI and what is the human judgment. And that is something that we're going to have to figure out. But I'm happy now to get Mike's perspective, who's just been terrific as the chair of our China committee. And he and I, he leads, he's the chair and the ranking member on armed services, a Marine from Wisconsin. We disagree on things, but always within a view of what a debate on ideas.
Well, thanks, Ro. I appreciate it. Although I'm embarrassed because my staff informs me that I have, or Elon, you have 147 million followers. Ro, you have 312,000, and I have 8,000. So mine are very dedicated, though. So you are welcome that I brought my dedicated 8,000 to this conversation.
Well, I think you're going to have a few
Mike.
more after this. You'll have a few more after this Spaces, I think.
Quality, not quantity. That's what I'm after. But thank you, Elon. I think from my perspective, just to briefly add to what Ro said, we now, though we've, I think on the Armed Services Committee primarily thought about the applications of AI on the battlefield. Now, because of this sort of quantum leap in the technology over the last few months, this big debate is broken out between sort of the AI optimists and the AI pessimists. I would argue that you're sort of the most prominent member of the latter camp. I remember reading an interview with a famous technologist who said, with artificial intelligence, we're summoning the demon. And all those stories where there's a guy with the pentagram and the holy water, it's like, hey, he's sure he can control the demon. It didn't work out. And that was, of course, you. So I guess what I'm most interested in is getting your sense of your concerns as someone who's skeptical of pause is practical. But with this new announcement, and congratulations on that, what are you doing differently than, say, DeepMind, Anthropic, and OpenAI, and balancing the risk versus the promise of the technology?
Sure. So yes, I think I've been banging the drum on AI safety for a very long time, and yes, I think if I could press pause on AI, or to really advanced AI, sort of digital superintelligence, I would. It doesn't seem like that is realistic. So then XAI is essentially going to build an AI. You kind of grow an AI in a good way, sort of hopefully. The premise of AI is to sort of have the AI be sort of maximally curious, maximally truth-seeking. And this may, we may get a little esoteric here, but I think that from an AI safety standpoint, I think a maximally curious AI, one is that it is trying to sort of understand the universe, is, I think, going to be pro-humanity, from the standpoint that humanity is just much more interesting than not humanity. So if you said, like, I'm obviously a big fan of Mars, and that we should become a spacefaring civilization and a sort of a multi-planet species. But like Mars is frankly quite boring relative to Earth because it's a bunch of rocks. There's no life that we've detected so far, not even microbial life. Earth with its sort of with the vast complexity of life that exists on Earth is vastly more interesting than Mars. You just learn a lot more with humanity being there, and actually I think fostering humanity. If sort of trying to understand the true nature of the universe, that's like actually the best thing that I can come up with from an AI safety standpoint. So that's, yeah, and I think this is actually better than trying to explicitly program morality into AI, because if you program a certain morality, you have to say, well, what morality are you programming, and like who's making those decisions, and even if you are actually extremely good with how you program morality into AI, there's still a morality inversion problem, what is sometimes called the Waluigi problem. That if you program Luigi, you inherently get Waluigi by inverting Luigi. To use sort of Super Mario metaphors. So I mean, this is obviously getting quite esoteric. But hopefully this makes some sense. So, I would be a little concerned about, maybe the way that say OpenAI is programming the AI to say that this is good and that's not good. And if it is, anyway, so that's like X.ai is really just kind of starting out here. So it's not it'll be a while before it's relevant on a scale of the sort of OpenAI, Microsoft AI, or the Google DeepMind AI. Those are really the two big gorillas in the AI right now by far. And man, I could really talk about the subject for a long time. It's something that I've really thought about for a really long time, and actually was somewhat reluctant to do anything in the space because I'm concerned about the immense power of a digital superintelligence. And it's just something that's sort of, I think, maybe hard for us to even comprehend. Yeah. So there's also, even if the AI is extremely benign, the question of relevance perhaps comes up. Like, if it can do anything better than any human, well, what's the point of existing? That is also an issue. Just, do we even have relevance in such a scenario? Anyway, that's the bad side of it. The good side obviously is that in an AI future where you really will have an sort of in a benign scenario, an age of plenty, of where really there will be no shortage of goods and services, and any scarcity will be simply scarcity that we self-define as scarcity. So, like, it could be unique piece of art or a house in a specific location. It's artificially defined scarcity, but goods and services will not be scarce in a sort of AGI future, in a positive AGI future. And so, but I think it's actually important for us to worry about a Terminator future in order to avoid a Terminator future. Yeah. So, and I am an advocate of having some sort of regulatory oversight. And I've actually made this point throughout the world, meeting with world leaders, including in China, and where actually there seems to be actually strong agreement that there should be AI oversight, AI regulation. So it's sort of just as we have regulation for nuclear technology, you can't just go make a nuke in your garage, and everyone thinks that's cool. Like we don't think that's cool. So there's a lot of regulation around things that we think are dangerous, and even if things are not dangerous at a civilizational level, there's still, we have the Food and Drug Administration, we've got the Federal Aviation Authority. We've got the Department of Transport. There's sort of there's all these regulatory authorities that we put in place in order to ensure public safety at an individual level. But AGI is just one of those things that is potentially dangerous at a civilizational level, not just at an individual level. And so that's why I think we want to have AI regulation. We want to be careful in how the AI regulation is implemented, and not be precipitous and heavy-handed. But I think it is something that there's got to be some kind of referee on the field here. Because one of the dangers is that companies race ahead to, I think it's actually more dangerous for companies that are behind, that might take shortcuts that could be dangerous. The FAA came into being after lots of people died in aircraft crashes. And they were like, well, look, if you're going to make aircraft, you really cannot cut corners because people are going to die. So that's kind of how I see AI regulation. I know it's like a lot of people are sort of against it, but I think it's the kind of thing that we should do. We should do it carefully. We should do it thoughtfully. But I think it's something we should do. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Elon. My takeaway headline is that you affirmed the earth and affirmed humanity, and that is in a time of pessimism. I'm glad that you still believe in the earth and humanity as possibilities, and mention the positives, the abundance of goods and services, the lower cost. And I couldn't agree with you more about the need for regulation and thoughtful regulation. One of the points I talked to Mike earlier, and I was making about the FDA, is some of the smartest people are actually at the FDA. And I know some of the business folks complain about the FDA at times, but then they acknowledge that the people at the FDA really know what they're talking about. And I think that has led not just to the safety of drugs, it's also led to high standards that has had the United States make the best drugs, the most efficacious drugs, because the FDA challenges them to a standard. My own view, I don't know Mike's view, I see Congressman Gates, some others are on the call, is that Congress lacks the knowledge to really delve into this. And I don't think we ought to be just deferring to industry. And so creating a new regulatory body like the FDA, FAA, that has experts from technology, but also from ethics, from civil society, people who've really studied this, scientists, in my view, would be a concrete step. And whether it's that or we get a commission composed of people who really understand this, it seems that Congress is going to need help to get this right.
Yeah, I would take your point, Ro, about the dearth of expertise in Congress, right? Congress has not covered itself in glory when talking about even the most rudimentary technological issues. I mean, see sort of Facebook Zuckerberg hearing 2018, and it's like it birthed what was called at the time the meme apocalypse. But I also think there's concerns. I don't speak for the entire conservative world about. I think maybe the pandemic illustrates the dangers of ceding too much authority to unaccountable experts. And I also take your point about the FDA, but do we need a more dynamic regulatory process with the technology like this, where the pace of change is so quick? Put differently, it's not like, even if we passed a sensible AI law this year that struck that balance you talked about, Elon, between oversight guardrails, but also the need to innovate, it might be outdated very quickly. So figuring out that dynamic regulatory model without stifling innovation, I think, is the core dilemma. Because for me, and this reflects my bias, I think the one thing we know for certain is that if we fall behind, because the Chinese Communist Party is not going to pause, they are going to use the technology for evil, to perfect a techno-totalitarian surveillance state. We, at least in the free world, have the chance of using it for good and striking that balance. But I admit it's very difficult. I mean, I guess, Elon, do you see an obvious path forward in terms of regulation that doesn't completely strangle innovation, but also doesn't unleash the Terminator hypothesis. Because that's my constituents understand Terminator, whereas I think the positive externalities of AI still seem distant and in some ways ephemeral, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree that there isn't. It's difficult to think of any sort of. I can't think of a good sort of movie example, TV example of AI that's the benign scenario. There are some books like I think the Ian Banks culture books are probably that's the best imagining of a positive AI future that I've read. So, I think arguably you could say like the Isaac Asimov Foundation series, also the books. The TV series diverges quite far from the books, but the books themselves actually have somewhat of a benign AI scenario. But the most sophisticated and perhaps most accurate view of AI future is the of the N Banks culture books, which I'd highly recommend. But it would be helpful for Hollywood to articulate that vision in a way that the public can understand. So, but I think that the right sequence here is to go with insight followed by oversight. So at first it's really just I think the government trying to understand what's going on, and I think there's some merit to an industry group, like the Motion Pictures Association, that I think actually should be formed. So I mean, I think we'll try to take some steps in that direction, because I think there's some amount of self-regulation that could be good here. I did when I was on my recent trip to China. I did spend a fair bit of time with the senior leadership there, talking about AI safety and some of the potential dangers, and pointing out that if a digital superintelligence is created, well, that could very well be in charge of China instead of the Chinese Communist Party, and that I think that did resonate, because I think they would no government wants to find itself unseated by a digital superintelligence. I think they actually are taking action on the regulatory front, and are concerned about this as a risk. And I've seen some comments internally within China where the companies are a bit unhappy about the government wanting to have regulatory oversight on AI. So I think this is something that does actually resonate even in China, because in fact, when I was in China, I said one of the biggest obstacles to AI regulation outside of China is a concern that China will not regulate AI and will then get ahead. And then they understood, they took that point to heart, and it's a logical point, I think. And like I said, the concern I highlighted, like if you make some superintelligence, well, the superintelligence could be what actually runs China, and that also resonated. So I think, yeah, it's if we I think trying to shed as much light on the subject. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, and being as open about things as possible, going from insight for a few years to then oversight with consultation with industry is, I think, the sensible approach. And I think the public is starting to understand the potential of AI. With like ChatGPT was something that obviously the public could interact with, and it's like, I mean, I've understood the power of AI for a while, and those sort of deep in industry have, but until you have some easy to use interface, it's difficult for the public to understand. It's also the case with Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. You can see the incredible art that AI can create. It's really amazing. So I mean, I'm actually somewhat of an optimist in general. So but I like I said, I think that the best way to ensure a good future is to worry about a bad one, and that's so I think that's the sort of the sensible thing to do, and to have discussions like this, and continue to have discussions like this. Yeah. So.
Maybe a couple of follow-ups, Elon, and then I'm sure Mike will have that. My understanding is that there's the machine learning part right now where people basically are making predictions of how to complete a sentence or looking at patterns, doing analysis. And then there's the fear of the general intelligence emerging, where the concerns that you're voicing about can these robots be smarter than governments? How far away do you think we are from the general intelligence versus the sophisticated machine learning? And the second point, because I know, I mean, you showed up to China before Blinken did. I mean, how open do you think China would be to work on some kind of international framework on regulation of AI? And is that, in your view, feasible?
Um, my understanding from the conversations that I had in China was that China is definitely interested in working in a cooperative international framework regarding AI regulation. There's obviously there's a fair bit of distrust within America and distrust within distrust of China within America and distrust of America within China. But at least based on the conversations that I had, I think they would be amenable to being part of an international regulatory framework. And yeah, so that was my impression. But the proof's in the pudding, so we can see. It is very interesting to visit China in general and see the perceptions, because the as much as, say, people in the U.S. might distrust China, likewise people try just in the government, they distrust America. And what tends to mitigate that distrust are really conversations, especially in-person conversations. It's very easy to demonize uh, an organization or a person if you don't meet with them. And then they're like, when you meet with them, they're like, well, they're not as bad of a demon. They're not that bad, actually. So you sort of get to sort of understand where they're coming from, and at the end of the day, we're all part of, I think, team humanity. Hopefully, I think we should all aspire to be part of team humanity. We got one planet only so far, and we don't want to lose it. And there's that famous quote. I think it might be Einstein, but it could be one of those internet things where you think it's Einstein, but it's not. But where I think it's something to the effect of it doesn't know how World War III will exactly be fought, except to say that World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. There's not going to be anything left. So we really want to aspire to avoid global thermonuclear warfare. Really, we really want to avoid that big time. Um, and hopefully focus on positive things, and like I said, becoming a spacefaring civilization, becoming a multi-planet species, ultimately going out there and visiting other star systems where we may discover, many long dead one planet civilizations that never got beyond their original planet. On the XAI front, I mean, if I speak to like my personal motivations here, is that I've always just wondered, like, what is really going on in reality? What's trying to understand the nature of the universe? And are there aliens? Where are they? Like the Fermi paradox, I find to be intriguing and troubling. If the standard model of physics is correct, the universe has been around for many billions of years. So why haven't we seen aliens? And I know that many members of the public are convinced that there are sort of the government is hiding evidence of aliens, and I have not seen any evidence of aliens. I get asked this a lot, but I think that's actually maybe a concern. I might feel actually a bit better if I saw evidence of aliens, because if I have not seen one shred of evidence of aliens, and which is a problem. Like, which it means that that life and consciousness might be incredibly rare, and like maybe we're it, at least in this galaxy. And it just like the light of consciousness seems to me like it could be this tiny candle in a vast darkness, and we should just do our absolute best to make sure that candle does not go out.
I'd like to plant a flag in the aliens conversation and come back to it. I take your point about the risk of war, as Eisenhower said, the only way to win World War III is to prevent it. I guess, at the risk of being the buzzkill on the conversation, I just remain very skeptical that the CCP could be a constructive actor in any international framework. Or I guess it would pose the question, in what other international framework have they been a constructive actor, right? For a decade, our experts made the case for sharing cutting edge gain of function research with China, and that turned out to be a total pandemic level disaster. The proponents of such engagement also traditionally make the case that, oh, our interests are aligned when it comes to stability on the Korean Peninsula, non-proliferation, climate change. But if you just examine across those domains, they suck on all three. They're bad actors. So I think even if the CCP leaders took your warning to heart, and I understand it, I think it's logical, it's thoughtful, I just remain skeptical they would slow down. And I'm fairly certain in the near term, Xi Jinping will use this as an instrument for total techno-totalitarian control. I actually think this is Mark Andreessen's best point in his AI optimism case, that the single greatest risk of AI is that China wins the global AI dominance race, and we do not. I guess put differently and perhaps provocatively, I'm just not sure they aspire to be on Team Humanity. I see them acting as if they're on Team sort of genocidal communism most of the time.
Man. Well, I look. It's always it's always challenging because you know like
Well, at least we're proving that Twitter doesn't censor the conversations.
Yes. Oh, actually, well, speaking of which, Ro, I'd just like to say thank you and an appreciation for your support of freedom of speech in the whole Twitter files situation. When we were combing through the Twitter files, you were one of the few voices that actually spoke up against censorship and in favor of the First Amendment, which is incredibly important. So just thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a basic value. And in my view, I mean, it's conversations like these where you have a different perspective, I have a different perspective, Mike has a different perspective, thousands of people engage. That's the closest shot we have of getting to truth. And I guess that used to be the old-fashioned liberal position, John Stuart Mill,
I
free
know.
speech.
Exactly.
So,
Yes, it's
By the way, I thought we were launching Roe's presidential campaign on these Twitter Spaces. I was misinformed.
well, but
well,
things didn't crash. Things are still running. So,
well, you're welcome
anyway.
to certainly would welcome you any such action on this platform. But I think I think I think we can all agree that having dialogue is productive and it's good to have things like this and so but yeah on the China front I'm like I'm kind of pro China and I know this makes it sound like, well, do you have all these vested interests in China? I'm like, I have some vested interest in China, but honestly, I think China's underrated, and I think I think the people of China are really awesome. And there's a lot of positive energy there, um, and I think they kind of want the same things that people in America do, and so that's not to say that there aren't some very significant disagreements. And there's obviously going to be a significant challenge on the Taiwan question, like a very significant challenge. But I think on the sustainable energy front, really China's done actually a lot to further electric vehicles within China. They've been China makes more electric vehicles than I think the rest of the world combined. So there's a lot of solar power, a lot of wind. There's also a lot of coal and whatnot. But China has been pushing quite hard on the sustainable energy front, and I think that's not that just is that's simply a fact. They really have been pushing very hard. So and I think ultimately, once the very difficult question of Taiwan is resolved, I am certainly hopeful that there will be positive relations between China and the United States and the rest of the world. And but we probably have a bumpy road between now and then. But like I said, I think let's say the long term, we want to. I think we'll aspire to be Team Humanity, and yeah. So that's
Well, one of the things I've appreciated, Elon, about Mike's leadership, and in some places I don't think there is total divergence, in that Mike has alerted the Congress and the country about some of the things that the United States needs to do. Certainly, I've learned from him about ensuring that an invasion of Taiwan doesn't take place. So whether that is making sure that Taiwan has weapons, whether it's making sure that we have the right military posture in the Pacific, in effective deterrence. And I think he's built bipartisan consensus for that. And the other thing that's emerged as bipartisan consensus is that we hollowed out our manufacturing base. I know you've been a proponent of making things in this country, and there's a recognition, I think, on a bipartisan basis that we shouldn't. I mean, steel. We've got all of the top 15 steel companies. We don't have a single one in America anymore. 9 of them are in China, and then we've got to bring some of that manufacturing back. And it seems to me we could have a view of both the national security challenges and the economic challenges that then allow us also to aspire for the right type of engagement and peace and avoiding war. But I'll let Mike speak. But it seems to me, Mike, that the tone of the committee, even where we've had disagreements, has ultimately been an aspiration for peace, not getting into war.
Yes, I'm genuinely not trying to make this a China rant. I guess, listen, I think even the most hawkish member of our committee, and I'm admittedly on the hawkish side of the spectrum, fully supports the Chinese people. We have no quarrel with the Chinese people. It is the party that is the source of instability in the relationship and the primary enemy of the Chinese people. And that's the core of the dilemma. And I think it's important to make that distinction. And we look forward to a world in which the people aren't subject to the whims of an oppressive regime. Furthermore, on the question of peace, yes, my whole mission in life is deterrence. That's what I'd spend most of my day focused on. A war between the U.S. and China would be absolutely horrific. It would had the potential to make previous world wars look like child's play in comparison. But my theory of deterrence is that we need to deter by denial and put hard power in Xi Jinping's path to make the prospect of taking Taiwan so unpalatable that he never tries it. And I know we're straying far afield from the AI conversation here. On your points about energy, I just, the stats I've seen, you obviously have a lot more experience in this space than I do. I mean, last year they built 6x the amount of coal plant capacity of the rest of the world combined. But if you take an easier case, which I don't think there can be a dispute about, I mean, when it comes to something like free speech, and I view you as a champion of free speech. I mean, you've called yourself a free speech absolutist. There's no question that the CCP is not into free speech. And therefore, my concern that if they dominate this technology, they could use this to suppress speech, suppress freedom of religion, et cetera, et cetera. And it wouldn't sort of further the advancement of humanity. Again, my view, I'm not trying to be the bad guy on this whole thing, but reasonable people can disagree. That's why I love Rokan.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have this theory about prediction, which is that the most entertaining outcome, as seen by a third party, not the participants, is the most likely. That's really it's not necessarily the best thing for those involved in it. Like, you could be watching a World War One movie while people are getting blown to pieces while sipping a soda and eating popcorn. Not so great for those in the movie, but it is entertaining, which does suggest there's things it's probably going to get hot in the Pacific. So hopefully not too hot, but things are going to get hot. And hopefully we can get we can get past that and get to a positive situation for the world, in the spirit of aspirationally we're all on Team Humanity, but it's gonna get spicy, and then I mean, basically, if I were to say the most concerning thing is probably the Taiwan question over the next 3 years, and then in the probably 3 years after that is the I would be surprised if there is not digital superintelligence in roughly the 5 or 6 year time frame. That's if this was a Netflix series or something, I'd say the season finale would be a showdown between the Western China, and the series finale will be AGI.
No, that's fast. I didn't think 5 years. I mean, that's. I didn't realize that you had a view that it's that quickly. Bringing it back a little bit to AI. Um, I guess two questions. One for people, even your harshest critics, Elon, recognize that you've been one of the most successful entrepreneurs, technologists in the world. And if you're a young Elon Musk or an aspiring young person and you're seeing the world of AI, or you're someone who's blue collar family and you've got a kid and you're seeing AI and concerned about automation and what you should do, what would you say to them? I mean, what would you say to someone young, 15, 18, 20, in the world that we're entering? Either if they have a college degree or not having a college degree, that they should do to prepare themselves for the future economically?
I can't think of anything like I suppose that there's if someone is able to contribute to building AI in a positive way, if someone has that technical ability, that is probably the right thing to work on. The for your average citizen, I think it's going to be the future is definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, things get very strange in a future where the AI can basically do everything. And in the benign scenario, I guess we will look for personal fulfillment in some way. I think between now and then, I think it's just trying to be useful. I mean, on the manufacturing front, I do think we should place a much greater weight in the United States on the importance of manufacturing. I think the things that are shifting back in that direction. It generally when somebody asks me uh, for advice, my advice is try to be as useful as possible. It's actually quite hard to be useful. And if you can be of use to your fellow humans, then and contribute more than you take, then I think that's a great thing. You know, I have a lot of respect for those who work hard and do make goods, provide services in excess of what they take. That is just a fundamentally good thing. So, but it's a hard question to answer with certainty because it is so uncertain. Uh, the advent of AGI is often referred to as the singularity. A singularity is like a black hole. You just don't know what happens after that. After you go into the black hole, like we are on the event horizon, the singularity of digital superintelligence. So definitely one of the most interesting parts of all of history. And I've actually thought like, well, I wonder if maybe it would have been better to have been born at a different time, and before artificial general intelligence. But then I thought, actually, you know what? Even if it is, well, this is just a personal conclusion I came to is that I would prefer to be alive to see it just because it's the most interesting thing in history. So even if it was a calamity, I guess I'd prefer to see it rather than not see it. And obviously, we want to do everything possible to make sure it is not a calamity. So I guess the positive side of it is it won't be boring. So it definitely won't be boring. And I think if I were to assign probabilities, I think it is more likely to be a positive scenario than a bad scenario. It's just that the bad scenario is not 0%, and we want to do everything we can to minimize the probability of a bad outcome with AI. But I should clarify that I think I don't know, maybe it's like 70-80% likely to be a good future, and maybe a great future even. So yeah, I think of the future as like probabilities. It's not nothing's for sure. The future is a set of branching probability streams.
Would there be, Elon, like a signpost that we're nearing such a singularity, right? I mean, I think one of the reasons there was so much excitement over ChatGPT is that, ever going back to Alan Turing's papers on AI, we've had this idea that once a system passes the Turing test or the imitation game, that it would be said to be intelligent. And my understandings were basically there. Do you believe that test is a good marker for achieving AI or AGI? Do you believe there's some other sort of thing we should be looking for? And I believe you had a debate over consciousness when it comes to AI recently, and would be eager to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think we're well past the Turing test at this point. and like the I mean, ChatGPT is well past the Turing test. Uh, really, we're well on our way to digital superintelligence. Like I think it's 5 or 6 years away. Where I'd say the definition of digital superintelligence is that it's smarter than any human at anything.
Mm.
Like, so that's, and it's not necessarily smarter than the sum of all humans. That's a higher bar to be smarter than the sum of all humans. And especially given that it's the sum of all humans that are machine augmented, in that we will have computers and phones and software applications. So we already are de facto cyborgs. It's just that the computer's not yet integrated with us. But one's phone is already an extension of oneself. Like if you leave your phone behind, it feels like missing limb syndrome. Like you're patting your pockets and like, where'd my phone go? And it's crazy the degree to which our phone, which is basically a supercomputer in your pocket, is an extension of yourself. So there's a higher bar to be smarter than the sum of all humans that are computer augmented. Yeah. So I mean, thinking about this whole thing stresses me out a lot. I've had many sleepless nights thinking about this. So and trying to sit figure out how do we navigate this to the best possible future for humanity. It's a super hard problem. It might end up being the hardest problem we've ever faced, and definitely demands our attention. And I think ultimately it's these the nation state battles will seem, I think, parochial ultimately compared to digital superintelligence. It's like if of the various risks that we face, there are ones that are like dangerous at an individual level, dangerous at a sort of state level, but then there's like things that are dangerous at a civilizational level. Global thermonuclear warfare is obviously dangerous at a civilizational level. Some super virus that has very high mortality rates would be dangerous. I think it's crazy to do gain of function research. Like gain of function research is a nice way of saying death maximization. Like I don't know who came up with this gain of function marketing BS, but it's what's the function you're talking about? Oh, death. Okay. So I think they would be less likely to get funding. We need to be very cautious about it. We really should not be doing that stuff. It's crazy. So and then but AI is also a civilizational risk, and but also like the thing about AI is it's I think unlike gain of function or global thermonuclear warfare, like AI is, I think, is really has the potential to make the future amazing if it's done right. So yeah.
And I think, Elon, I know we're approaching the end of the hour, so maybe I could say something, Mike, and then you can close. I mean, I guess, if we do have this supercomputing, I think the question is still what values underlie that. How are we going to make sure that the ethical framework or the way that the AI is ultimately making decisions are those grounded in values I think most Americans share. And here I do think that our values of respecting individual freedom, dignity, rights, respecting freedom of speech are important, and we want to make sure ultimately are embedded in the technology that develops. And that to me seems to be the biggest challenge for the Congress in terms of American leadership is how do we, one, make sure we're part of the debate, because I don't think we should just cede the debate to technologists in constructing AI without the public deliberation and input in what those values should be, and how we do so in an informed way. And
Yeah.
I agree with you, insight first, but at some point, I think we have to make sure that it's our framework of basic values that are give it our best shot. That is what's going to be the framework for AI.
Yeah, we definitely want to maximize the. I think that we, we want to maximize the happiness, the collective happiness of humanity, and the freedom of action of humanity, and like you want to yeah, like you want to look forward to the future and say, yeah, that's the future I want to be part of, and I'm excited about that future. I think that's actually incredibly important in general. I'm actually like concerned that there's this somewhat of a, in many parts of the world, a pervasive pessimism about the future, and that's part of what's leading to a low growth rate in many parts of the world. Uh, and I really would advocate for optimism. And in fact, I think generally it's better to be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right for them. I would I would hope we leave this space's discussion on a positive note that we should be optimistic about the future, and we should actually just fight to ensure that the future is a good future. That
You're really going to give Gallagher the last word if you want to leave on optimism?
Hey, I'll be nice. I'll be nice. I'll be nice. Well, first of all, optimistically, I choose to believe in the version of singularity in which I can download my consciousness into a robot body and explore Mars as well as many other planets. So I'm putting all my eggs in that basket. I think there's some, even as we sort of debate the higher order issues here, I think there's some obvious steps we can take in this Congress in the short term that I think would be bipartisan. I mean, what Ro and I do on armed services together is really just to push the Pentagon to do a better job of leveraging technology and buying commercial technology as opposed to, defense primes trying to invent everything themselves, and that doesn't really work, just given the pace of change. I think there's a lot more we can do there. I think we could put some sensible guardrails on American capital flowing to foreign companies that may be building systems designed to beat us or be used for nefarious purposes. I'd love to skip directly to an international regulatory body with a bunch of constructive actors, but if I'm right that seems unlikely in the short term, one constructive thing we can do is just start with ourselves and then build out kind of a free world framework that strikes the balance. You talk about, Elon, starting with our Five Eyes Alliance, and then you just sort of build out concentric circles from there once you get the basic foundation of that. That should be achievable. Difficult, but should be achievable. And to end on an optimistic note, I think all of us look at what's happening with SpaceX, and it makes us incredibly optimistic. I mean, it's really inspiring, actually, and the way in which Starlink technology is being utilized, not only in Northeast Wisconsin, but in Eastern Europe right now. I think that's a remarkable story of American innovation.
Well, thank you. I mean, I hope it is. It's certainly inspiring, and that's yeah. I mean, I really want the things that we see in the positive sci-fi movies, like the sort of Star Trek's has actually arguably like quite a positive sci-fi version of the future. I think we want that stuff to come true. We want Starfleet Academy. We want to go where no one's gone before, um, and explore the universe. And that's what I think fires me up, and I think fires a lot of people up. It would just be incredible to go out there. I mean, you look up at the night sky and see all those stars, and I wonder like what's going on up there. Are there alien civilizations? Is there life up there? And hopefully one day we find out.
Seems like a good note to end on.
All right.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Elon. Appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate the conversation. Hopefully we should do, my hope is that we could do more of these kind of things in the future. Mike and I have been talking about, doing it with you, Elon, and just figuring out how to have a conversation in this country that is substantive. I wish we could do more things like that.
I couldn't agree more. This is great.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. And once we find the aliens, let's get them on a Spaces conversation too.
I sure hope those aliens are nice to us.
All right.
Nothing so concentrates the mind like an alien invasion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Independence Day is pretty In fact, like the Independence Day speech is amazing. So
I forced my 3-year-old daughter to memorize that for 4th of July. So
Did you really?
it's all American children shit. I may have just played it for it, but thank you guys. Appreciate
Athletic Greens AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. Athletic Greens AG1 is an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point and something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy. Wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, Snake Oil Salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. And remember, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. There's nothing to lose here. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, Let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links in the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon. And don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.